Okay. Waiting if we are live. I can't see anything on YouTube yet. Okay. Waiting if we are live. Yes, we are. Okay. Hello, everyone who's watching. I'm waiting for people to log in. I'm Isabella Kichle. I'm from Impact Revolution, a small pan-European NGO. We're currently in the midst of our newest project, Plastic Mountains, in which a group of our members are hiking over the Alps wearing costumes made out of plastic to raise awareness to the current plastic crisis. But of course, raising awareness is also about talking about plastic, about waste and its issues, which is why we are organizing these panels. Last week, we talked about plastic and human health. If you have time after this panel, I urge you to check it out. Today, we are talking about plastics and also waste and social injustices. I have with me three panelists, Jonas Stuk, Kevin Mtai, and Dr. Sedat Gundoktu. I tried pronouncing his surname correctly, but I think I failed miserably. I will present each of the panelists prior to their presentation. They will present their topics one after the other. And afterwards, we will move to the questions that I have, that the panelists have, and that you may have. You can write your comments on the chat, on the live chat, and I will see them. With no further ado, we're gonna start with Jonas. Jonas Stuk is a doctoral candidate at the Rachel Carson Center in Munich. His work focuses on historic flows of waste with a particular interest in hazardous waste and the ethical, environmental, and economic debates that are attached to it. He will talk about the historic issues or the historic developments of waste management. Jonas, should we start your presentation?
Yes, I'll share my screen. Just give me maybe, can you see what I'm sharing with you?
I can see it.
Perfect. Okay, so my name is Jonas Stuk. I'm an environmental historian and humanities researcher at the Rachel Carson Center in Munich. I'm part of a research group called Hazardous Travels, Ghost Acres in the Global Waste Economy since the 1970s. And our group tries to understand the dynamics behind the trade of hazardous waste from 4 different case studies. One in India, one in Ecuador, one in the United States, and then also my case study, which is focusing on the 2 Germanys during the Cold War. And we're sponsored also by the German Research Foundation. And to begin with, I think you might ask yourself what the trade with hazardous waste has to do with our topic today, with plastic waste, and what a historian can maybe add to the discussion about the increasing social inequalities caused by the plastic crisis. In the next 10 to 15 minutes, I will try to answer that question. And in order to do that, I will draw inspiration from my research and then expand a little bit beyond that. As mentioned before, my doctoral thesis is about the trade of hazardous waste between East and West Germany during the divide of the 2 countries from the 1970s to the 90s. And I just want to quickly say what hazardous waste is. So waste is corrosive, flammable, and harmful to the environment and human health. Examples would range from contaminated lead paint, asbestos, batteries, outdated pesticides, old fridges, and could be as simple as your old frying pan, which is coated in Teflon. These examples that I just mentioned would be used mainly in households, but in my case studies also like a large amount of hazardous waste is produced by industrial companies, like giants like BASF, Mercedes, or Bosch in my case studies. Just to mention here, nuclear waste is not included in my definition because it's too specific and works under different regulations. Okay, but like plastics, a lot of waste that falls under the category of hazardous waste is historically quite new. So after the Second World War, the chemical industrial production skyrocketed and new chemicals flooded the market. After their lifetime ended, many products needed to be discarded. The increasing amount of hazardous waste in the 60s and 70s coincided with an increasing environmental awareness within the global north. Popular books like Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, which was published in 1962, advanced environmental sensitivity and led to an institutionalization of environmental protection agencies and environmental ministries. Backed by a strong environmental civilian protest movement, tighter regulations were issued, but this also meant that less and less infrastructures that dealt with the increasing amount of waste were created in the global north. For the first time, historically, waste became a hot commodity, and especially so hazardous waste, because it was unwanted in global communities, and the slogan of many Western citizen environmental groups was, "Please don't dump in my backyard." And this not in my backyard mentality led to the increasing difficulties to get rid of waste locally and in environmentally sound manner, and created the first so-called waste crisis. But let's take a step back from these kind of historic developments between the environmental groups and tighter regulations, because behind all of this are the economic dynamics of the waste business. And hazardous waste is a commodity with a negative value. So you have to pay money to get rid of it. Wealthy countries like West Germany had the luxury to pay for the disposal of hazardous waste in foreign countries, and therefore externalized the environmental harm that might come from this unwanted matter. In this scenario, West Germany paid East Germany from 1974 onwards to accept the hazardous and household waste and dispose of it in various landfills in East Germany, which you see on the left-hand map. So there were 5 landfills and 1 waste incinerator. As environmental standards were less stringent in the East, the waste was dumped and incinerated without proper technologies. I will show you some archival pictures of how the dump sites looked in the 1980s. And since all environmental data was classified in the East, citizens around the landfills were not informed about the potential harm or what was actually going on. This led to Eastern environmental movements questioning, first of all, this form of waste colonialism from the West, but also their own government, which didn't protect them from the harm. And I think this case study is quite interesting in regards to the plastic waste crisis. As mentioned, so these are the archival, just to say, these are the archival photos that will pop up on the screen, and they're all from the Stasi, so the secret police archive of the GDR. Yes, so as mentioned above, the term waste colonialism came up during the 1980s for the first time in newspapers and activist movements. Often it was connected to cases of exported hazardous waste from Western countries. Morally and ethically, Western environmental movements adopted the term as they learned more about the possible effects of their not in my backyard attitude. In the late 1980s, this led to the first so-called return to sender campaigns, when Western environmental groups campaigned to re-internalize the exported waste back to their country. I wrote a paper about this first West German case where Green politician I drew a portrait of that campaigner, where the Green politician and Greenpeace activist Andreas von Bernstorff successfully campaigned with the help of local Turkish environmental groups for the return of 1,600 tons of hazardous waste back to the state of Baden-Württemberg in West Germany. This was in 1988 and brought to light many of the underlying ethical and moral questions of the global waste economy that was often operating in the gray zone and with huge profit margins. Export to East Germany or the export to Turkey are just two case studies of a much bigger picture of the waste economy that is largely based on colonial power relations. These are just examples from researchers that have written about these cases, but they also speak to much broader economic mindset of the time. An internal World Bank memo from 1991 by Lawrence H. Summers, at the time chief economist of the World Bank, revealed how so-called dirty industries could actually profit from global inequalities. In line with the World Bank's ethos of market liberalization, he suggested to exporting polluting industries to what he called least developed countries. Summers highlighted the financial advantages of countries with lower wages. If toxicants affected workers negatively, the damage for the global economy would be arguably smaller if it affected low-skilled ones, not those from high-tech industry. I think the economic logic behind dumping a load of toxic waste in the lowest wage country is impeccable, and we should face up to that. That's what he wrote. He also observed an unequal distribution of hazardous waste on a global scale that gave room to move waste from places of high population density, such as Los Angeles or Berlin, West Berlin, to places of low population density, such as Sahara. I've always thought that underpopulated countries in Africa are vastly underpolluted, end of quote. He also underlined the lower opportunity costs in the global south. Concerns over hazardous waste increasing the chance of getting cancer would be low in countries with a high mortality rate among the young. Cancer treatment for people beyond their 50s and 60s is not as much of an issue if there is a critical number of citizens that do not even reach that age. For Summers and those supporting his arguments, his proposal was a thought experiment, applying economic distribution logic to the global scale, hoping that in the end this will lead to general increase in economic output and improved welfare around the globe. But there was a huge outcry after the publication of this leaked memo, and because it showed these ruthless economic and ethical mindsets of the global elite of the 1990s. One of the only options to fight against this economic were market regulations. Bernstorff, who I mentioned above as the actor in the Return to Sender campaign, later became part of the campaign for new regulations regarding the export of hazardous waste. The outcome was the Basel Convention in the mid-1990s, which tried to ban the export of hazardous waste. However, there were two major loopholes. First of all, prior informed consent of the party who imported the waste was then allowed to export the waste. And second of all, the export of waste was still allowed as long as it was recycled in the imported country. So recycling became the new big thing, and under this term, a lot of waste was actually exported and never recycled in the end. This term recycling is maybe also where we can connect again with the waste trade to today's plastic crisis that led to these inequalities. Here I showed you, took some screenshot of archival newspaper articles from 1986 to 1989, and you can even see that when talking about these cases of exported waste, the newspapers didn't even write about waste colonialism, but just wrote about waste tourism, which in my mind is quite interesting, as it's just a big euphemism for what was going on. And I found this especially for today, since I don't actually focus so much on plastic waste in my research, but it's a newspaper, just a small little newspaper note from the newspaper Der Stern, and it just talks about the waste export of plastic waste to China, and they interviewed the manager who was exporting the waste to China, and he said, yes, they know that this plastic is just going to be burned, but it's okay because it's not going to be burned in the cities, but more in the rural areas. And people who burn it, or like people work in these companies that burn them, they are going to get a higher wage. I find that just fascinating without like even questioning this kind of mentality that was just published in the newspapers of the 80s. Yes, so I was actually like listening into last week's talk, and I was learning a lot about the potential health effects of plastic, and it was incredible for me to see how chemical substances can hook onto these microplastic, and then later when we embody these microplastics, or other animals embody them, they become hazardous. And I just screenshotted you a post from 2 days ago where somebody, like, that's a report about the plastic waste poisoning in the food, and I just wanted to show you that there's like a lot of research going on about these kind of topics at the moment. So, and I'm really interested to explore more about the relationship between actually toxins and plastic. Yes, and I also learned last week that it's a kind of global condition that we're born into nowadays, to have microplastics in our body, and that's where I wanted to connect back to what Rachel Carson said in her book, because she found out that 99% of humans have some traces of the insecticide DDT in their bodies. Even in remote mountain lakes, she found fish that are impacted by that chemical. So she thought more about large-scale connectedness of chemicals through water, and we now know also through measuring systems on larger mountains that a lot of chemicals can up in the high atmosphere and travel vast amount of range in a very short amount of time. And actually, because of these measuring stations on these mountains, we found out that often these kind of chemicals in the atmosphere land on high mountains as they stick out of the landmass, and these kind of remote places become more and more contaminated. So on the one hand, it's a global condition that we're born into, but of course there are local specificities. And what I've done during the past 4 years is to focus on what happened in my own backyard. I mean, I was born maybe 2-3 kilometers behind the old border between East and West Germany. And one interesting fact that I found out is that there's still a lot of waste being transported actually from the west to the east. Last year, the journalist Michael Billig published this book, and he describes how there's still the waste flow from the west to eastern often illegal landfills, where the waste is never recycled, and how that can look like I found out for myself. And yeah, alone in Brandenburg, like the area surrounding Berlin, there are over 100 illegal landfills, and this is just one of them. I hope, and it was just like one point to add is maybe I think there's like, once there is this dynamic installed of the waste colonialism, it's very hard to get rid of these like sticky relations. And it's interesting for me, even though we are a reunified country, at least in Germany, there's still this underlying dynamics going on, even though we have been reunified for more than 30 years now. Yes, I hope I could give you a short overview over my own research, but also over longer developments from the 1970s until today. If you want to find out more about my research, this is a virtual exhibition that I did with my team, which covers different topics of the hazardous waste trade. And you can also find me or us, the group, on Twitter, and this is my email address, and I would like to thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward to the questions and the discussion later.
Thank you so much, Jonas. I'm really glad that you listened to our last panel and that you managed to find a connection to your current work. And I'm looking forward to, if you look into the topic of plastic and hazardous chemicals, what you come up with. I think the end of your presentation is actually the perfect introduction or segment to our next panelist, Dr. Sedat Gundotu. He is an associate professor of marine biology at the Faculty of Fisheries, University of Kurokova in Turkey. He's a member of the Microplastic Research Group. His main research topics at the moment are source, transport, fate, and effects of micro and macroplastics in aquatic environments. His researches also focus on the effects of illegal dumping and incineration activities in the waste trade and its effects on environments. And today he's going to talk with us a little bit about waste trade. So, Sedat, I give you the floor.
Oh, thank you for introducing me, and you pronounced my name perfectly. Let me share my screen. Do you see my screen now? Okay.
Yes.
Well, we are talking about waste and its trade and the effect on the communities and environment. So we can call it colonialism, new kind of colonialism, because all this waste, especially this plastic waste, traveling from global north to the global south, is like from rich to the poor countries, like from developed to developing countries. So it's worth nothing to say that it's kind of colonialism. But the first we should talk about what is waste, good or bad, and what cost. Because if you want to talk about waste, then we have to make some definition, because waste we are generating waste in during our daily life. You know, every activities of us generate some waste. It's kind of carbon dioxide and somehow plastic waste or organic waste. All of them we can put in same basket, same bin, that waste bin. Like, of course we are separating it because of our waste management system, but at the end all of them can be dumped in same places, like in somewhere in South Asia or somewhere in Turkey or somewhere in Africa. So when and where this waste trade started, let's go a bit in history. Like in 1986, this KEAN case is the one of the main case in waste trade history, because this is also the sign of the foundation of Basel Convention. But the main idea of Basel Convention is to eliminate this hazardous waste from rich country to the poor country. So this is the first case. Then we can say this Kansi case is the can put the beginning of this waste trade history, because all the hazardous waste that in this ship, Kansi ship, just traveled all around the world, and then sink in the middle of Pacific Ocean, and now all this waste now traveling in food chain and in marine environments. So this is another shipment, is from 87. This is kind of full of plastic waste, just traveling around the sea, and most probably this is also now somewhere in seabed in Atlantic Ocean or somewhere else, from US to the Caribbean islands. Yeah, as Jonas mentioned, this is Summers memo is one of the most popular leak internal communication leak from World Trade Organization. So we can put this Summers memo on the colonialist background of the waste trade, because according to this guy, the rich country can transfer their hazardous waste to the poor country, because the community living in the poor countries deserves to live in hazardous waste, because they don't deserve to live in wealthy environments. So that's the main the summary of Summers memo. Here the main quotation from Lawrence Summers from 1991. He think the economic logic behind dumping a load of toxic waste in the lowest wage countries impeccable, and we should face up to that. It's mean, yeah. There is another quotation, like to understand the colonialist background of the waste trade, and then we can put this figure on the base of main theory of hazardous waste trade. I mean, the toxic waste trade, because the waste produced in rich country has high disposal cost, and if they send this hazardous waste to the poor countries, they also reduce the disposal cost, because in poor countries they don't have efficient waste management, they don't have effective environmental rules, and the people has to think some other basic, living things, like survive, to find clean water, or to find enough nutrition. So that's the main thing in the base of waste trade. So when we check this statistic, global movement of plastic waste, we can understand this colonialist background of the waste trade, because most of the waste shipping to the non-OECD countries, which is mostly poor countries, and on the other hand, these countries also has highest share of marine pollution according to scientific articles, because those countries has effective waste management. They have really good sorting system at source, and they are bringing all different kind of waste together at source, and then shipping most of them to those countries that don't have any piece of waste management system, because in those countries waste management mainly based on informal waste pickers, which is the community that doing this waste picking are mostly fragile communities, like refugees or ethnic minorities, or disadvantaged communities. For instance, in Turkey, most of the waste pickers are Syrian asylum seekers and other asylum seekers that just came to Turkey to live. So we can say this is also another part of the social injustice in waste trade, because main target of this waste are this fragile communities, and Turkey is one of this target country. Also has a really high share of fragile communities inside. More than 5 million of Syrian refugees living in country, and then now we have another flow of group of refugees from Afghanistan just coming to Turkey, and also other ethnic minorities working in bad condition in this industry. So there are more statistics come from EU. These countries, EU, UK, US, also feeding this injustice system, because when they send their waste in terms of trading activities, in terms of circularity, because they consider waste trade under circular economy, because they claim that they are exporting raw material actually, but it's in reality it's not really raw material, because we are seeing this raw materials on ground in illegal dumping sites and illegal burning sites. So here another statistics is the UK plastic waste export to Turkey. UK also one of the contributor of this social injustice related with this plastic waste trade. So we should check some other statistic like municipal waste statistics. Turkey, for instance, Turkey is the third country has highest generation rate of municipal waste, but only 10% is handled this generated municipal waste. The first one is Germany, and second one France, and then UK and Turkey. All of these countries has a connection, because Germany has highest share of recycling, highest share of sorting at source, but Germany also has highest share of plastic waste export to the Malaysia, to the Indonesia, to the Turkey. Then also this is also valid for UK and also for France and other European countries. But in importer side, we can even manage our 10% of the produced generated waste, but still the business want to take more waste from these developed countries. So here, other ranking system. This is recycling and compost waste. The exporter countries considering their exported waste under recycling. So when they export plastic waste to the other country in terms of recycling, they are considering these numbers as recycled, but they don't care about the fate, what's going on in importer sites. Look, this pictures from Turkey. This is how waste are managing in Turkey. This is informal waste pickers. They are just taking plastic and other paper on other kind of valuable materials in this open waste bins. But this country, one of the first country that has highest share of plastic waste import from European countries. What we import, what they export. You see the group of bag, shoes, and shredded plastics, some rubbers, and I don't know what is this. This is a mix of plastics. This is what we import. This is what they export. So these are not okay. This rubbers sorted at first. Of course, it's obvious. Also, this shoes and bags, but we don't know what is this, because this shredded plastics one of the most suspicious plastic. I mean, in terms of hazardous content, and also this one. So we have to sort this in facilities, but it doesn't work actually, because we found most of this waste in ground in middle of agricultural area, alongside rivers, irrigation canals or roads. You see, this is how imported waste managed at destination part. In open air, it's like open area, and any precautionary thing is just dumped. This is legal dumping. Legal dumping of imported waste. There are also illegal dumping of this imported waste. So how is it marketed, and what's the reality? The recycling industry always use these pictures when they make promotion or when they market their job, but in reality, this is what's going on in the ground. This is the right side. And this is the environmental cost, burning, dumping, and all of this area is really close to the rural communities. So these places are the middle of agricultural plain, one of the biggest agricultural plain in Turkey, Çukurova, we call it. But the fate is not like agricultural activities; it's kind of toxic activities in the middle of this food production site. So this is another work that we did, like a mapping of illegal facility fires, suspicious facility fires. These facilities are plastic and recycling facilities. At least each year, more than 60 facilities are being burned, but we don't know what's the main reason. It's like every 2 days, these facilities are, being burned every 2 days. It's just too much. It can't be, intentionally happened fires. There should be some planet activities in this fire. This is the second map. This one is the illegal dumping location that we mapped in Adana city. Most of the waste came from European countries. Yeah, here there's some brands we don't have in Turkey, but we have their package. I'm lucky because I know almost all of brands sold in European markets. So this is what happened when they operated in recycling facilities. Look, this is all of them are microplastics and just flowing directly to the Mediterranean Sea. That's why the Turkey is one of the first country that pollutes Mediterranean the most. So that's one of the reasons. When you check the statistics, Turkey is the first country that pollutes Mediterranean Sea, and South Asian country polluting Pacific Sea, and these exporter countries are the least polluters in in terms of plastic pollution, in terms of marine plastic pollution. But there are some, there is a problem in this quotation, in this system, in this balance. And this pictures from a wastewater treatment plant. Most of them are coming from, these are microplastics. Look, full of, all these holes are full of microplastics coming from this recycling facilities that receives imported plastics. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sedat. First of all, I'm sorry because I live here in Germany, which means the waste that I produce in my household ends up in your backyard. So that's what I have to say for now. We talked about the history of colonialism and waste trade and the issues and what it means for countries that are importing the waste. Today we have with us Kevin Mtai, who is an environmental activist. He is a climate justice activist and environmental defender. He's co-founder of the Kenya Environmental Action Network, KEAN, Africa Regional Coordinator of Earth Uprising, and Kenya Coordinator of Climate Live. Today, he will talk to us about his work, mainly about his current campaign, #Africa is not a dumpster. Please, Kevin, you have the floor.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much for saying that. Yeah, as Isabella have mentioned, my name is Kevin Mtai from Kenya. Yeah, and I'm here to talk about mostly about what my other fellow panelists have said about plastic. Knowing that plastic currently around, especially in Global South, plastic has been the one of the silent mode of slavery and also neocolonialism in this country, including Africa and also part of Asia. So, and knowing that also plastic pollution is no longer like an environmental issue, but also it's a health issue in different countries, the way of see. So during the time we had this information which was leaked by Greenpeace investigator international from US and also one of the reporter from New York Times. They came up with this investigation, said that this bunch of companies in under American Chemistry Council, under Exxon and also Shell, being the member of that corporation, they wanted to export plastic into Kenya, to use Kenya as the hub of Africa, knowing that they know that Kenya is it's like a market, a recycle market for them, and also here in Africa. So after they came up with that, me with my fellow colleague from Kenya Environmental Action Network, we sit down and we decided to come up to say enough is enough. We need to do something, knowing that even here in Kenya, we have our own plastic, even we have not recycled it, because if you can go and visit different towns in Kenya, we never see the beauty of the city anymore because we have plastic in most towns, especially because here in Kenya, usually find this dump site, they're usually located in slum, where these like poor people live. So we wanted to start something which we can pressurize our government and also pressurize US government to stop this, they call it like a friendly trade deal. So we contacted one of the CL, I think you know CL, this is an organization based in US, under Jen, because we talked with Jen, and Jen was able also to say, yeah, I think that's bad. So after that, we came up with this campaign, Africa is not a dumpster, the hashtag, and we started. So we uses different social media platform. We invited different organizations, and we talk more about how plastic is going to have an impact not only in human beings but also in animals, because we have been seeing, the way I live in a rural area, we have been seeing most of the cause of the death of animals here in Kenya, especially in rural area, is among these animals taking plastic and this plastic choking them. So that's why we came up with this campaign, and we decided to start this campaign in social media and also in physical. And knowing that even in Kenya 2017 was able to ban plastic here in Kenya, use of plastic in different, especially in these areas which are protected areas. So we started the campaign very well, where we did a strike in Nairobi, in one of the in Uhuru Park, and we invited different people, and it was able to have a good coverage, because most of this international media were able to cover that. And they wanted to do like an hybrid event, where we'll be doing a physical event in Nairobi, and then we can have another Zoom, a virtual strike, where we invited one representative from the Ministry of Trade in Kenya, and other people who have been working good, especially in different organizations fighting for plastic from US. And after that, one of the people represented from ministry, he told us that Kenya will never allow any trade which is not, first, is not environmental friendly, and also is not interfere with human beings and also animals. And we wanted to do this strike very well. And firstly, we also getting help from one of my friend there in US, known as Global Children Campaign Organization, and also from another lady known as Naomi Jones, who usually work for Climate Reality. So we wrote a letter to the US Congress and also US Senate, explain to them very well what is entails and how this is going to interfere with, especially not only in Kenya, but also one of the agreement which the European and also country came up with, known as Basel Convention Agreement, because Basel Convention Agreement stated very well that developed country should not export or disposal their hazard material, including plastic, into this undeveloped country. and why this American Chemistry Council are trying to lobby our government to say that Kenya is one of the hub here in Africa. They can export their plastic here in Kenya, through Kenya, so that they can use Kenya as the recycle center, knowing that even in Kenya we don't have like that a good technology and a good thing, because we know USA is among the country which can circulate their own material. You see, so that is one of the things even made us to go on the street to strike more. And also knowing that we are not the one who use that plastic material. That material belonging to them, those plastic waste. Why are they want to disposal here in Kenya? So we did that after writing a letter to the US Congress and US Senate. They were able to reply, writing the letter to the former President Trump, explained very well, what is going on. After we did that, we were able also to have most organizations were able to sign in to support us, to fight for us, to show solidarity. We had also one of the petition, which I share with you, Sabella. You can share maybe on the chat, explain very well, and people can support us. And currently we wanted also to relaunch the campaign again, because Africa is not a dumpster. We are not only talk about plastic, but we are talking about most of these things, because knowing that plastic is a product of oil, and knowing that one of the things which is destroying our environment currently are the fossil fuel companies. And we have been seeing what is happening around the world. Now the world is experiencing what we call the real climate change, because we have been seeing climate change is mostly affect global south country, but currently it has gone beyond, because climate change doesn't it doesn't respect borders, because we have been experiencing flood in Germany, flood in Belgium, flood in those countries, you see, and it was very discouraging and also shameful to see from Germany, a woman was being interviewed with one of the biggest media there, known as DW, and say that they never knowing that even German country can experience flood. We know that flood can experience in this poor country, knowing that it was meaning Africa and other part of Asia and part of South America, that the one who usually facing this thing. You see, those are kind of the word which is not acceptable to be used. So, and we'll be doing this campaign because I'm still talking to one of the people from US. We wanted to launch the campaign again to explain to the world the importance of this, because even country we have been seeing what is happening around the Africa. You know that when US want to do something, they may keep quiet, but they may do these things silently. So that's why we want to get more clear information from the US and also from Kenya, if this trade deal is going to be happen or not. And to know more information, I think Sabella can share the all information about this Africa is not a dumpster campaign. You can see where we featured different like petition and also different thing, knowing that plastic is one of the things which is going to kill us, because some research have said that if we continue like this in the future, we will no longer having fish in the ocean. We'll be having plastic in the ocean, replacing fish. And knowing that we can recycling the plastic is not the best method is going to solve this problem of plastic, the menace around the world. We need to stop producing this plastic, and because we have some product which does not need plastic, but we end up finding them even packaging in plastic, because I know only thing which we can be packaging in plastic is medical thing and other things related to medical. But these things related to food, I think it's high time us to move away from plastic to go in another way, because plastic, we never see the long of the beauty of the world anymore, because plastic is everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Especially thank you for your campaign. Again, everyone who's watching, the campaign is called #Africa is not a dumpster. I already put the petition on the chat, but we will edit the text under the YouTube video with more links afterwards. I totally remember a year ago, I actually did something for social media, because I remember reading about this ongoing talks between the US and Kenya. And this was August of last year. And you're still here, you're still fighting, it's still an issue. And as you said, people need to know about it. It shouldn't happen between closed doors, especially now with the new government of the US, who knows. So thank you all for your presentations. We can start with the question round now. I would actually start with my own, which is first to Kevin. Do you feel like the new United States government could be a chance to change the trade deal, or is it the same?
Yeah, I think we have opportunity for change, because change usually come when you pressurize the government and also pressurize those people out there. So we have been trying also to pressure the government, and our government have said they are not going to accept the deal, which is not good for environment and also good for people. So yeah, I think under our own government, because they were able to ban use of plastic in these areas on 2017. So there is a great chance of having a change in that deal. So we are still pushing to get more clear information if this deal is going to continue. So we're still contacting this different organization to see how we are going to work on this campaign by launching the campaign again. Yes, because the campaign is no longer not only working for plastic, but we have other things which are happening in Africa, which is including even mining. You see, people are mining our own minerals here in Kenya and here in Africa, and go back to their country. Because last week I was doing a research about Guinea, what is happening in Guinea. There's a company from Japan or China. They are exploiting there, and they are doing harm to people, and also causing pollution without benefiting these people from the community. And also there was also another campaign which I did a research also about in Congo, where we have been having some information there in Congo. They have been using children to go in those mining to do without even compensating these people. So those are things which are under this campaign. Africa is not a dumpster. You see, so Africa is not a dumpster. It's not only about plastic, but it's about neo-colonialism here in Africa and also slave here in Africa.
Thank you. There was one question that came in. It's to Jonas and also to Kevin. I don't know which one of you can answer it. Oh, and also to Sedat, I'm sorry. The commenter assumed that the European Union has some regulations in place about the export of waste, but that there are probably loopholes in them. Does any of you know how the European Union waste export regulations are flawed or may be flawed? Whoever knows the answer could raise his hand.
Sedat, do you want to go first? I think the question was...
You can go first, actually. Well, it doesn't matter, yeah. Well, actually, the European Union legislation on the waste export is not something big, because this legislation came into force at 1st of January, and then after that, countries like Turkey still continue to import mixed plastics and useless plastics. Actually, most of the plastics are useless, but in terms of export and import of this raw material, so we can say that European Union wants to send their plastic waste to the other countries, because the tackling and the managing this plastic waste is not cheap, as I presented it, that this triangle, because this disposal cost is quite expensive for European countries, and then they have to send somewhere else, some backyards like Turkey. But thanks to Ministry of Environment in Turkey, they decided to put some contamination limit, which makes waste import impossible, because of 1% contamination limit means that they don't want to plastic, because you cannot find plastic waste with contamination lower than 1%, because all of them has almost 10% or 20%, because this is the main idea, that they want to send it to other countries because it's quite contaminated, because most of them are food packaging. So the European Union has a very small change in their legislation, like to send to OECD countries, not sent to non-OECD countries, but still they are defining the type of material. If they say it's recyclable, then they can send to non-OECD countries as well. Thanks.
Yeah, I think just to maybe add a few sentences, I think like generally, it's quite interesting that we all work in some form or another with Greenpeace as an actor that is important in these kind of dynamics. Like these kind of actors, either as like they want to campaign for something, or they gain information through members that are legal, etc. And when Greenpeace mainly pushed for the Basel Convention at the end of the 80s and early 90s, there was a huge positivity in the air, I think, because they thought, okay, we have finally something that can help to stop the export to other countries. And at that time, they were even talking about they want to stop the export of all dirty industries to other countries, which would mean that if you, for example, like Kevin talked about mining, that these kind of environmental harms that are exported to other countries would also be not allowed. And that would have been huge, but it didn't happen for some reason or another. And since then, like the Basel Convention has kind of failed, as Sedat also mentioned, because there's so many loopholes, the loopholes of recycling. And Bella, you said, for example, sorry for sending all the recycled plastic to you. And it's true, because we try to be good citizens and put the plastic in the yellow bag for recycled. But I, for example, stopped doing that. I always put my plastic in the normal residential bag, because if you find out what your local waste management system is like, then you see, oh, it's actually getting burned, because then it's not out of the municipalities, right? But so it doesn't go into a private company who then is doing all these things, but you are sure that the state is dealing with it at this time, and that they are going to burn it. And yes, it's actually bad, like worse for you, because then they incinerate it in your kind of area, but it's actually a lot better for the environment. Yeah, just like a little side note. And yeah, like for me as a historian, for example, I find it extremely frustrating in a way that Sedat started his talk with waste exports is the new kind of colonialism. And I read exactly the same in the late 80s. Like, it's the latest instance of colonialism, and since then, so little has changed. For me, just like maybe another point on regulations is like just the last point I'm going to make is about the new initiative for supply chain law. And I think something like that, like a bigger regulation where you have actually, where responsibilities are taken that are just also beyond just the waste sector, is like super important. Yeah.
Thank you, Jonas. I think something that wasn't talked about explicitly, but I think it's always important to talk about when you talk about waste export, especially recyclable waste export, is it profitable for the poor countries to take part in such deals, to import the recycled waste? I know the answer, but I don't know, it's good to mention it again. Sedat?
Yeah, it's profitable, but not for country, for traders, because there are problem with this labeling, because when they put label as this is pure polyethylene waste, but in reality the inside of the containers it's not really the same kind of polymer inside, because this makes the this trade profitable, because in theory, all of the this containers has to be recycled, but in reality, we can say that 50% or 40% are recyclable. So there are some, even 40% of a container recyclable, they can earn money on this 40%, because it's really profitable. Because for European countries, the disposal cost is quite high. So, for instance, they have to pay. They have to. How can I say? They have to give 10 unit of money to dispose this waste in their country. But if they send it, it reduced like a decrease to 2 or 3 unit money or something like that. That's the main issue actually. And also this importer sites, in some case they are not paying, they are taking money or waste, even they import. This is also another issue, because we don't know the reality, because there is no transparency on this issue. We need transparency.
Yeah, what I wanted to add, because that's kind of...
I think what I can say.
Please, Kevin, talk.
Okay, yeah, sorry, we have a lot of rainfall here. So what I wanted to say, also to add on what Sedat has said, I think this is going to benefit the broker. Those people usually go and negotiate those, and the rich people, because if you have people from government who are going maybe to negotiate to export those plastic into, let's say, for example, in Kenya, they're the one who are going to benefit, not the community or not the people, but they're the one who are going to benefit. These are politicians and also mafia and also the broker who I usually go to negotiate those kind of trade.
Thank you. What I wanted to add is that before the Kenya-US trade deal was in the talks, China and other Southeastern Asian countries were some of the biggest importers of recyclable waste. And they, 2 years ago, first China and other countries followed suit, decided to not import waste anymore. At least they put more regulations on it, because they realized it doesn't work for them anymore. There is not really a lot of recyclable waste that they can really recycle. So they had to dump it somewhere. So I think that it's important to know that you cannot even use a socioeconomic benefit as an argument for a waste export, because there really is not one. We had another question, which was about extended producer responsibility, EPR. Someone asked if someone has ideas about it. Do you think that EPRs can plug the funding gap for municipal waste management systems? I think this question goes to Dr. Sedat again. Do you know about EPRs?
Well, EPR, it depends on which country and which kind of definition they use for EPR. For instance, in Turkey, we has a foundation which founded part of EPR, Çevko. All of the companies has a representative in this foundation, like Coca-Cola has one representative in this foundation, and also Pepsi has, Unilever has, other big corporations, big business has a representative in this foundation, and they have to pay something for some I don't know the amount of money, but they have to pay for their expanded producer responsibility to this foundation. So but this system is not really works, because when they pay, and then it's mean that they can do whatever they want, because everything has cost. If you pay your cost, and then you can do whatever you want. So we have to change the mentality of this extended producer responsibility. Like each plastic producer has to take responsibility of their produced package. For instance, if they produce single-use package, and then they have to track, they have trace, and they have to control the from production to the sorting bin. So that's the really real extended producer responsibility. In some countries, they are trying to do this, but with this deposit refund system, but still it's not really works. We should close the tap. Closing the tap, the only solution for a waste management system, because there is no actually funding gap for municipal waste management. There are quite a lot funds for this. Countries, promoting, and countries paying companies to deal with this waste, but they're not doing their job. They are just transferring all this waste to the other countries. So we should change the mentality of the waste production. That's the main thing. It's more important than this current EPR mentality.
Yeah, I mean, in Germany, for example, the first plastic packaging law was introduced in 1991. So we're like talking about things that are 30 years old at this point in time, and we haven't found a successful way of like using these regulations to actually make a change. Yeah, and I think that's why I, in my talks, always highlight this ubiquitous dynamics worldwide, where people in the global north finally understand, or start understanding, that it's a planetary condition that we're talking about. We are talking about differences. We're talking about local inequalities, or national inequalities, but we're also talking about a global condition. And I think only then people, once they get that, will actually make meaningful systemic change. Yeah.
Thank you, Jonas. While I let the last comments come in case anyone has questions, please write in the chat. I would ask the panelists, do you have any last words? Do you want to add something? Jonas, you can go first.
Thanks so much for being on this panel. Actually, I really enjoyed it, and thank you to Kevin and Sedat, and to you for moderating. But I don't have any final words. Just keep up the hope and keep up the good work, I guess. And yeah, thanks.
Sedat?
Yeah, thank you organizing such a wonderful event. It was really nice to be with you. I can say just one sentence, like just one word: trace your waste. Look, where is your waste? Where is going your waste? Then you will find your answer to all your questions about the fate of your waste.
Thank you. And finally, Kevin?
Yeah. I think for me, I just want to say thank you very much for organizing this, and to have alongside Dr. Sadis and Jonas. Yeah, I'm really appreciated. And what I can say maybe to the audience and people who are watching, I think when you are using plastic, think about the future generation. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I've said it already, but I will say it again. Please check out Kevin's campaign. Hashtag Africa is not a dumpster. I already put the link to a petition on the chat. More info will come soon. I've learned a lot. Some things were repeated, for example, that we need more transparency. As Kevin said already, we need to reduce the production of plastic, and we need to pressure our governments, which means, again, it's about public participation to induce change. So everyone who was watching, really thank you for your attention. Thank you for being here with us. I hope I learned a lot. I hope you did as well. Since no comments have come in since in the last couple of minutes, I would say that was it for today, for tonight, depending on your time zone. I will be ending the broadcast as of now. First, I wanted to say we still have 2 other panels coming. Next week is the next one. I have to say, I think it's my nervousness, but I forgot which panel it is. But we have some great panelists. Again, we've mentioned SEAL, for example. They have someone from there. We mentioned Greenpeace. They will be in the panel. So please check it out. Same time, same place. See you then. Jonas, Kevin, Sedat, thank you very much.